Welcome to If the Public Only Knew, the show that pulls back the curtain on what it really takes to build and lead a business. Host Gary Cinderbrandt sits down with some of today's most dynamic CEOs, founders, and leaders to dig into their origin stories, hard-earned lessons, and the missteps that nearly derailed it all. These are unfiltered, no-hype conversations designed to inspire, challenge, and fuel your own journey. Now here's your host, Gary Cinderbrandt.
This is Gary Cinderbrandt. You're listening to If the Public Only Knew. And today, I'd like to welcome our guest, Elliot Kallen. Elliot, I believe, is the founder and lead principal at Prosperity Financial in San Ramon, California. Now, where my background is more from the wirehouse side, primarily at Merrill and UBS Private Wealth, Elliot came up on a different path, the registered investment advisory side. And I know for the public, sometimes it gets confusing as to who does what and what's the difference between one side or the other. And the easy answer is the SEC regulates folks like Elliot, and FINRA regulates all the big brokerage houses. I would guess that the SEC regulation is probably a tad more thorough, since FINRA is basically sponsored by all the major firms and SEC is sponsored by the taxpayers. But that's a discussion for another day. Anyway, Elliot, welcome to the podcast. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Gary. Great to be here.
Elliot, I'm always interested in kind of the genesis, how you or any advisor, because we all kind of start the same way, which is basically with inspiration, fear, and an idea and a belief we can make it. But those early years are tough for everybody. Take me back to when you first realized you wanted to go down this path, which we both agree is a wonderful path if you're built for it, and how you got to a point where you knew this was right for you. What got you in this world?
Well, Gary, thanks again for having me on. I've been doing this for 33 years now, and for 32 years, it feels like 33, for 32 years. And I've been fortunate enough to love what I do, but to also understand that it's what I do, it's not who I am. And those are very different. We could talk about that if you want. But I've started now entities 3, 4, and 5. I've been an entrepreneur. It's what I like to do. I started them and sold them. And back in the early 90s, I decided I wanted to get into the financial services business and create an entity that worked like an accounting firm with partners in various levels, like auditor and tax and things like that. And so I started to look in New Jersey, where I was living, North Jersey, and I decided, okay, I need to get some training under my feet. I met with the Lincolns, the Merrills, the Smith Barneys, the Dean Witters, the Shearsons of the world in those days. And almost all of them, you'd be just cold calling, and some of them even graded you based on how many calls you made in a day. And I thought, well, that's just not me. And at the same time, my ex-wife then got pregnant with my twins, and she was from California and said, let's move to California. I said, okay. And she found me a little article and a little ad in the San Francisco Chronicle from Lincoln Financial in San Ramon, California. That's the East Bay. And I answered it. They interviewed me for 8 hours. The CEO, the CFO, everybody, and then asked me if I would create a business division, since my background has always been B2B.
Interesting. Okay.
And so I started to do that. I worked for them. I got a little stipend, and they all have starvation diets when you get started. I actually would never wish this on a young person. I tell everybody, don't start from scratch in our business. Buy somebody or don't get into it. It's too hard, and it's a starvation diet. And so I started it. Luckily, I was okay getting no for an answer. I had a little financial wherewithal behind me that I could sustain myself. And then we did that for a few years, and Lincoln merged with Cigna and became SageMark, and suddenly they had a different personality, and they were turning into a company that was not what we were looking to do. And we had a nice parting of the ways. But while I was there, they allowed me to start Prosperity Financial Group, an RIA firm only. And I thought, okay, they didn't care. We didn't want anything through it. We still did it through Lincoln. But when we left at the end of 99, we had a RIA, registered investment advisory firm, ready to go. We left amicably in ways you don't even hear today. They didn't usher us out. We gave them 90 days notice. They let me bring a copy machine in to copy my clients.
Wow.
We had such a good relationship with them, and they were sad to see us leave, but they knew that was the next step. And we were okay. I mean, that's just what happened. And we left and we joined Raymond James as an independent RIA on the RIA side of Raymond James,
Hmm.
which it exists, but in much smaller terms than when we went there. They switched to salary-based advisors and made a change at some point. And that's when we started the fiduciary investment program here, where we would do financial planning. I had a partner in here who bought it with me, and we each own 50% of the company. That's a conversation that's about 50-50 partners that is worth the time too, because that'll keep you up at night, 50-50 partners. And we started to build it up basically from scratch. So here we are now, 20 years after we started it, or 25 after we started it. And I have two entities, Prosperity Financial Group, a $500+ million entity of myself plus 4 advisors, and a $500+ million entity called Prosperity Wealth Management that is 50 advisors, 2 different ones. And that third entity now, a nonprofit charity foundation that we work on as well. And so we do a lot. It's been a great journey. It has been a painful journey. It has been a sleep deprivation journey, and I've loved it. And don't ask me if I ever would do it the same way, because nobody should ever do everything the same way. It's not
That's
perfect.
true. So when you come out of Lincoln Financial, you were hired at Lincoln to build out a business unit with them.
Yes, I did have that. Just they were all consumer, and they were primarily tax sheltered annuities, 403(b)s.
Okay. So what was your product? What was your sales? Was it primarily annuities, insurance product, universal life? What was the product
Yeah,
from Lincoln?
so we started with medical insurance. We added to that 401(k) products. Lincoln had a product called the Director, 401(k). And then because we were dealing in the business owner marketplace, we added things like deferred comp, life insurance. At that time, it was variable universal life, not just universal life. And of course, term, we did that. Some disability insurance. And working with National Financial Fidelity Company, we started to build portfolios, but that was a really small part of our business.
So you didn't have a custodian or correspondent at that point. Primarily, you were dealing with business owners, solving business needs, which probably engendered a pretty high degree of trust as you started to move into the RIA world, I would assume.
We did. It was a slow roll, starvation diet. We hired some telemarketers to help us. We did some direct mail. We did some dinners. We did the very conventional things. But little by little, and it took time, but little by little, we were gaining steam and didn't even know it that we were gaining steam. But I knew I hired my office manager, who's still with me 31 years ago. And I told her, we're going to be staying here for a short period of time. And she tells that story today, that the day I interviewed her was the day I told her that we'd be leaving here to start our own RIA firm. And she said, that was your vision the day I met you 31 years ago. And look, you did it. So good for you. And she's still with me today.
So on the Prosperity Financial versus the wealth management, you've got the Prosperity Financial, it sounds like was the first iteration
Yes.
that you came out the RIA. And then Prosperity Wealth Management, is that primarily discretionary management, or is that more traditional Series 7 type management?
They're both discretionary, both in the same way, just one is in California and one is out of California. The
Okay.
one I work on exclusively is just for reps in California. That's Prosperity Financial Group. The other one is people outside California with 50 advisors. And I actually have 2 partners in that business too.
So you got 50 advisors and they're managing 500 million. I assume it's numbers more than 500 million,
Yes, of course.
because that would be starvation for each one of them if that were
Yes.
the case.
Right.
Where did you source those advisors from?
I worked with a little broker dealer called Fortune Financial Services out of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And their original deal was, look, we've got these advisors, they're going to leave us. If we don't offer them an RIA firm, you want to collaborate and create a new RIA firm just for advisors and people out of the state of California. And that's how that evolved.
So they had assets when they came on board and you
Yeah,
provided back office?
some of them were 5 and 10 million because they did a lot of annuities.
Okay.
They didn't need a lot. They didn't even know what they were doing. Some of these guys have no idea what they're doing. They just have assets.
So let's talk about that group first. Before we started speaking, I told you that one of the things I do in my consulting work with a lot of the wirehouses is really try and identify, well, they all know it's a problem. what's happening with the demographics in the industry in general, that you've got far more people leaving the industry in the next 5 to 8 years than you have coming in. The growth of qualified advisors coming in is extraordinarily low. The failure rate is still extraordinarily high. And by the way, Elliot, that's inclusive of anyone that even joins a team and has a senior member of the team pay them a livable wage as they're learning. Most of those people don't make it. Or when the senior advisor leaves, their best clients go someplace else because they're not really trained. They haven't come up, as you say, on a starvation diet. And, learning that the only school you got to graduate from is the school of hard knocks, because it is a tough business. So how are you planning for that? You've got these various entities. You've got everyone gets older. Your clients are getting older at the same time. What's your succession strategy? Not success in the conventional term, but how do you see your new clients coming to you? How do you see yourself and your advisors, both with what you're doing with Fiduciary Financial and the wealth management side? How does that replicate and grow?
That is a great question, Gary. I'm going to tell you that unscientifically speaking, when I was at Lincoln and looking at Merrill and places like that, they had a 5-year 90% turnover rate.
Yeah, that's true.
And that's 30 years ago. It doesn't get any better.
It does. It's not any better now.
No. And so I get the numbers there, and I don't think of myself as being superhuman and able to be in the top 10%, even though today I'm in the top 1% across the country. But I think perseverance was the key here. But here's the hard thing, Gary. I just turned 67. And years ago, when I was going to the Raymond James conferences and the TD Ameritrade conferences, when we're on the Schwab platform coming out of TD Ameritrade, I would look around at the break and I'd see these old white men with white hair. And I'd go, they were in their 70s, some 80s. And I'd go up and I'd talk to them because I wanted to engage. And I'd say, how old are you and what are you still doing here? And the story was, I don't have any hobbies. My wife doesn't want me to stay home. I've got nothing else to do. I can't play golf more than once a week. And I promised myself in those days that I never would be one of those old white men with white hair still doing this. I promised myself that. So, at a $500 million clip of what we are, we're called a mid-tier player. In the old days, I would have been gigantic. Now I'm mid-tier because the large tiers are 2 to 10 billion. And the 2 to 10 billion companies are buying out companies like mine. And they don't even think about it. They do it in various ways, roll-ups, cash, stock. They've got lots of ways to skin this cat. But I've been listening to these deals for 2 years. And then I entered 2025 and said, this is my year to see if I can make a deal. And I started to get some informal offers from some of these large billion-dollar firms. But in some cases, if you're not careful, the number on the front looks good, but you're selling your soul. And the devil in the details is you lose your life along the way. You lose everything you built. The name goes away. Your clients go away. People are mad at you. How could you do this to me? I've been with you for 30 years and they assigned me a young kid to be my advisor. He's younger than my grandchildren. And so you have a lot of turnover.
Oh yeah, 90% of those people leave.
Right. So we didn't want that. Happens. So I have a young 40-year-old buck that joined us a few years ago. That's the number 2 guy behind me. And he's significantly smaller than me in size. But I decided I would approach him with this as a mentor program. I would not leave. I would mentor him from advisor to business owner. And there is a big difference. And one of the problems in our business is the advisor just does his own little marketing and writes business and can't be bothered with insurance and rent and all these things that are associated with owning a business. And so we started the program when I would mentor him. I made him an offer about $1 million less in net dollars than I would receive on the outside, maybe $1.5 million, but that would give him the ability to buy me out if he could get financing. He still has to get financing. We're not done with this deal. But he would buy me out and I would mentor him and then slowly bring those clients in a junior role to become a senior role, but they know they wouldn't be losing me along the way because I was financing him and could help him.
So you bring up a really interesting point, especially the part about your younger partner having to get some form of SBA loan or something like that where they go on the hook. I've noticed of late, and I've actually been involved in a couple of these movements. One of my clients in Denver, RIA, extremely successful, early 50s, but looked around and he either had to get bigger or he had to sell. I think he was running about 400 million, really good FA. And I was working with him for a couple of years and we just couldn't scale it. He had too many households. He was buried all the time. Um, and he couldn't provide the level of service he wanted. And finally, just it was kind of a desperate move. I said, why don't we go and talk to one of the players in Denver? So I have good connectivity at 3 out of 4 firms. I won't tell you which one I don't talk to. You can probably figure that out. Um, UBS made him a great deal. Because now what he ended up with was he got obviously paid to come over. Um, they paired him up. We gave him a choice of a number of different people he could work with that he can train up underneath him. And then when he's ready to leave, UBS finances the buyout. So his junior partners are not on the hook. So he put a 10-year timeline on it and the thing worked out. The other interesting thing that occurred is that when he told his clients he was moving to one of the major wires, and an experienced guy, everyone in his top 20 or 25 households brought him more money. They gave him an asset-based deal. And they said, oh, can you lend me on my business? And he said, yeah, probably. And $5 million accounts turned into $20 million accounts.
Well, that's the
I was
beauty of these
blown
big
away.
brands.
Yeah.
Gary, that's the beauty of the big brands. They can help you do that. The independent RIA like myself, to some people with large dollars, still could be somebody that could go out of business. But a UBS and a Merrill aren't going to go out of business, they look at. So that does happen.
So I'll share with you the first offer they put on the table, and I negotiated it for him. The first offer they put on the table is the kind of offer they would make a banker, where the bank's going to claim that the clients. And I said, guys, this is not going to work. No, this is not going to work. I said, this guy's got amazing control of his clients. So they came back strong. They didn't screw around with it. Once they started to understand his how he was set up, I can't get the guy on the phone anymore. He's talking to him 4 times a week. He's literally that busy. So it's kind of going back the other way. And the way the large firms look at it, especially if you're coming in with a vertical stack, you as the experienced guy, you want to mentor the guy down the line that your clients are already involved with. That's magic. So as you explore various things to do, maybe we should have an off conversation, because that may be an out for you if that's the direction you choose to go. It's a very different world, and they're terrified of watching money walk out the door as their senior advisors leave money behind to people that don't know what they're doing. I'll go you one further. Your person that you're mentoring in the right age category literally would have the pick of wherever he wanted to go, to buying out the old white guys with white hair, because they're going to leave. They got no one to give their book to. Those people are not profiled properly. They're not following any type of planning or asset allocation discipline. And it's like, I wish I was 40. I would just be out buying books.
I'm with
And
it. I'm with it.
but you're built for that. Maybe it's a different conversation, but it's fascinating because I think you've actually come to a lot of the same conclusions my friend Scott, the other RIA, did. And you do look at, and I'm going to push back on one thing you said. This is what you do. It's not what you are. So you're telling me when you leave, you never think about your clients if you're not in the office?
So let's talk about that for 1 second, for a moment. I think about them all the time, and I think about them all night long, because we're all
Yeah.
terrible sleepers. We're all
Got
up
it.
at 2:30 or 3 in the morning and think about what went well today and what didn't go well. And the brain is very convoluted and complicated at night. I believe in that. But I had an unusual situation happen. I had a son 10 years ago, that took his own life at
Oh, I'm so
college.
sorry to hear that.
And it began, up until that moment, I would define myself as I am giving people the retirement that they love, deserve, and I can provide with money. But I began to think, and you get a little metamorphosis, that, well, life is a lot more important than a life in retirement.
Yeah.
And so I realized what I want to do in my business is create incredible retirements. But what I want to do in my personal life is save lives. And so we've done that. We created a charity
Good
that
for
does
you.
that. And now I'm 67. I'm in good health. I don't have a health issue. I don't have a financial issue. Now's the best time to sell the business or do something with the business, because my back's not to the wall. I'm not coming off a
Yeah.
heart attack, something like that. And because I'm an entrepreneur, I want to start something brand new in a totally different field. At the same time, I'm doing this. So I actually have a swan strategy. I want to create another business. It's entertainment and food, and so things are totally unaffiliated with what we do. I want to find myself 5 to 10 partners, 5 to 10 stockholders, create a subscription-based business, make it this certain size, sell it in 5 years, and create about 10 millionaires out of it. And that's my business swan song.
I think that's wonderful. I think it's great. It's outstanding. Um, there's nothing standing in the way. I mean, it could potentially run into some regulatory issues on the FINRA side, but from what you described, there's outside businesses that get approved all the time. As long as you're not doing what we both know you shouldn't be doing. Good for you, though. I think that's outstanding. Um, again, what I come back to is I know that to build the kind of business you built, you collected a lot of really great people that probably turned into great friends.
Correct.
And people that when you get them on the phone, you're not talking about money, you're just talking about them
Right.
and their health and their happiness, because your ability to facilitate that without putting it in a salesman type way is an art. And I think that, when I talk about prospecting, I talk about artful hunting. I never made a cold call, by the way. I hated it. My entire book was built on professional referral networks and over servicing my clients to the point where they'd feel guilty if they didn't refer. And it was great because I got to build a business with people I was totally aligned with. I didn't agree with everything that they did. I mean, I had some people in families that were, some to the left of AOC and some to the right of where we are now, and they were married, and
Sure.
it was fun. So it was enjoyable to be involved in their lives, which I think is really one of the privileges of what we do. I think you're in a great position. I think that your basic heart is you're acting on behalf of others, and I would guess even before you suffered that tragedy, that you were kind of built that way to begin with, that you wanted to make it better for people that you dealt with. You wanted to make money, I get it, but you wanted to leave it better than you found it.
Always. That's been my mantra. I come from a family my mother was a Holocaust survivor. We've been taught our whole life to work hard and leave the world a better place.
Yeah, I mean it's the baseline of the Jewish religion. It's tikkun.
Yeah.
And my dad taught me karma when I was a very young person. I never forgot it. You've got an opportunity and you've got a capability. To him, it was an obligation. Go do it. Don't
Go
worry
do
what
it.
you get right away. Just go do it. Um, I think all your choices are good. I understand where you're coming from. Perhaps we can have a follow-up conversation.
I love
But
that always.
I want to thank you for joining me today. I think for the general public who's really not aware of what's happening in the demographics of their own financial advisor, that if you're an investor, you should be talking to your current advisor to find out what their plans are. And if they're not introducing you to someone else on their team that you have confidence in and you're talking to more and more, they should be, because you don't want that surprise. Like, why do I have this kid that I'm never going to hear from again? Because the kid doesn't know how to pick up the phone or what to say when they do. I even back in the day, I used to get business from clients of longstanding of other advisors that did not want to go with the junior guy that was taking over the book, especially if they were their kids, born on third, thought they hit a triple, kind of a thing. You got to earn this thing every single day. So I completely understand where you're coming from. Um, how do people find you?
Thank you, Gary. It's the best way is Elliot, Elliot, at prosperityfinancialgroup.com, and obviously www.prosperityfinancialgroup.com. And my number is 925-314-8503. I talk to anybody about what it means to be an entrepreneur, start a business, sell a business, the hurdles you get over. Was it really worth it? Did the ends justify the means in your business? Things like that.
Elliot, really a pleasure chatting with you. The thing that I find with anybody that's been successful in our job, you've got to have entrepreneur deep in your soul. You've got to have the ability to get knocked down and keep getting back up based on nothing but a belief that you have no idea if it's going to work out or not. But eventually, as you said, you start to gain on that goal a little bit. And the businesses you did early on, and I think your timing to come into financial services was really smart because of the public need that continues to exist and will just expand over time. So, sir, well done for you. Thanks
Thank you.
again for joining me today. It's a fascinating conversation.
Gary, great to be here.
Thanks. We've been listening to Elliot Kallen of Prosperity Financial, entrepreneur and Renaissance man. This is Gary Cinderbrand. Thanks for joining us on If the Public Only Knew. Talk to you again real soon.
Thanks for tuning in to If the Public Only Knew. Don't forget to follow the show and share it with anyone who's ready for the real raw stories behind the business successes. Join Gary next time for another powerful conversation that will leave you inspired and ready to take action.